angi mai nei e saute Wela I e ui ae o tu wheleni te Ongo mai o hange hango erile O pehe ange mai e hoko maupe Folau ka pasau nei he hala tau wha Amerika lahi mo ono folaua Ono e a whakalata mai ke te kita Ki te noa maupe si I fungasia Te uhi vehi wape mo fie fia He ala o manongi o e kau mea Tuku ke mo oni a e ki ilea Misi e fuku o mama Kone a whaingata Folau ka pasamei he hala tau wha Amerika lahi mo ono folaua Ono e a whakalata mai ke te kita Ki te noa maupe si I fungasia Te uhi vehi wape mo fie fia
Welcome to Voice of South Pacific broadcast. This is an Pacific Islanders broadcast from Seattle, Washington. It's known as the Emerald City. Whamalo atu e tau kawhataha I aho whitu koine o Epileri o Wāwhi Wawa. Malo la maria ho eki vea malele e tongotoa, ko e whawhiloa ki atuena e polo kalama, mahu inga, e whai e talanoa ki ai ka matātā koini, ki he hanga koia o I tuunga o e mafu, ai au ne whatupunga ai heart disease, pia pehe whoki koia ki he pāka lava peko stroke. Ai ko e heart disease, pe ku wha mao e whaingani I ko heart attack, pea ai koe na pa mai pākalawa ai a koe stroke. O tau whiawhia, koe tau mao whenga maria ke tau kauwhataha. Moa kau ki nau tolu i he ta whaaki koe a oi mo ilelei ke nau whale i mo nau o mai hangai whahino hino ke tokoni kia ki tau tolu he koe sia lahi a tau kainga. In the meantime, I would like to welcome Janine Kleinman from Providence, Elderplace. Welcome, Janine, to Voice of South Pacific Broadcast. Thank you for coming in. Please forgive us, we're always running out coconut time, but we'll always try to do our best. But thank you so much, for ready to share some great information about the heart disease and also the stroke. In about a few weeks and a few days ago, we have few of our people in our community that were affected, and some of them lost their lives. And it's so saddening to see the loved ones that have been going from this life and also left their loved ones behind. However, it's always nice to have a little time that we can share, how to help to prevent these kind of disease. And like the doctor said, prevent is better than cure. Ko iai o ma o whenga maali koe ni, ke tau kau whatahai wa mo Janine Kleinman. Ka paulewa o ku iai hao whi hoi, o whi kau ake mo e ngahi ta whaaki koe ni o e mahaki mafu, pea pehe ki he pākalawa. O ku lawa lelei pe, you can also write a question i he ata mo la, pea te maulawa whakahoko atu ia. Pea ko iai o mawhiwhia ke tata lelei ki mo toko tape, mo kātaki, please share our program. Right now we're streamed live on Facebook and also the YouTube and also the Instagram. So please share this with your family, friends, so that we can all get the great information to help our family abroad. Thank you. Thank you, Janine, and welcome to our broadcast. I would like you to take your time, and please introduce yourself and what are some of the areas that you wanted to discuss today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Loud and
great.
clear.
I want to first thank you for having me. It's such a privilege to be invited to speak on behalf of Elderplace and all the people you've invited. I just want to thank you for having us. And yes, I work as a nurse practitioner, geriatric nurse practitioner for Providence Elderplace. And I'm going to speak on mostly heart disease today. That was the topic, but I did add a little bit on stroke. And I also want to extend my condolences for the loss of the person or people in your community who have suffered from this disease or diseases and lost their lives. So yeah, I just want to extend my sympathies to you.
Thank you.
And I also want to just say, please make this interactive. I want to be of service to the community. So interject any questions, or if you have comments, please don't hesitate to ask. I want to make it useful for you.
Absolutely. Okay, well, since you're going to talk about the topic, if you could just share what you want to share about the heart disease, like heart attack and stroke.
Yeah, so I have some slides for your viewers who are able to see it. May I share that now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, can you see that? Not yet.
Should be able to share. Sorry, she should be.
Here we go.
Okay.
Can you see
Oh,
these
yes.
slides?
Yeah, very clear.
Okay, great. So yes, as mentioned, I work for Providence Elderplace, and this talk is about heart disease mostly. And just a bit about Elderplace. So we work as an interdisciplinary team, meaning everybody has a part in taking care of our patients. We call them participants because they choose to be involved in our program. And yeah, my role is as one of the healthcare providers or nurse practitioner, but there's an MD who I work with, an RN case manager, social worker, physical therapist, occupational therapist, chaplain, dietitian. I think you had Joy Gonzalez on a couple weeks ago, and she spoke about nutrition, which is really great. We have a pharmacist, recreation therapist, and some others. So all those people are very involved in collaborating on people's health. And I just want to mention that because I'm just a small part of that. So heart disease, it really encompasses a lot of different types of diseases and abnormalities or pathologies with the heart. And I just listed a few, but the most common when we talk about heart disease is coronary artery disease or coronary heart disease. And that,
Janine?
yes.
Okay. Yeah, as you can explain, if you just give me like a little couple seconds, like every sentence, so I could, like say something in our language.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome. Aia koe ne whakamatala ni ki he tūnga koia o ki ai koe ni aia ko tau mā ia. Pea kare te me tau aria hoko ia koe heart disease. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And please let me know if I'll stop every slide or so. So yes, with the coronary artery disease and coronary heart disease, which is the same thing, I have a picture of a heart. And for those people who can see it, there's a cross-section view of a blood vessel or an artery that supplies the blood to the heart. And basically, that's what most people are referring to when they talk about coronary artery disease is slowly there are deposits that accumulate over time that end up blocking some blood flow. And that can be a serious situation, of course, if the heart is not getting enough blood and oxygen, the muscle can die, part of the muscle can die, and that is what leads to a heart attack and sometimes death. So that can be an acute event or a sudden event, but sometimes heart disease is chronic or develops over time. And this doesn't happen overnight where the blood vessels just clog immediately. It's an accumulation over years. The other heart diseases, which we sometimes see in our practice or more commonly are different types of arrhythmias or different conduction or electrical changes in the heart that can cause problems or arrhythmias. Heart failure, which is when the heart muscle is not squeezing very well to supply blood to the body. There's different types of heart failure, but overall, that is a very common heart disease. Valve disease, when the valves become leaky or they're not working properly in the heart. And then a very common type of heart problem is hypertension, and that's the blood vessels through the body and the heart have too much pressure, and that can lead to heart attacks and strokes over time if the blood pressure is too high and uncontrolled over a period of time.
Okay, thank you, Janine. I think you already explained it, but I just wanted to relay this question to one of our director from our broadcast, Latu Huakau. What dietary changes I need to make when I'm at risk of blocked artery? Any warnings? And what are the risks of coronary artery disease?
So as far as diet, most people think of salt, high salt or sodium being a problem with heart disease and diet, and that's true. Salt can raise your blood pressure. And overall, if a diet has high meat, red meat content or processed foods, high cholesterol, and fatty foods tend to, over time, cause clogged arteries. Now, Joy probably went into that in a little more detail, but the main thing is, and I'll get into a little bit more with what to do for prevention with those things and health lifestyle changes, but in general, a diet that's low in meat and fats, dairy products, animal products, and high in fruits and vegetables tends to be, and whole grains tends to be the heart healthy diet,
Thank you.
and low in salt.
Okay. Hange koe ne whakamatala o kone pehe koe mao koe mea tokoni ko lahi ai masima ai pui ko sodium. O kai ko tū pe masima. Ka pai ka kapa pulu. O ko osi iai pe masima ia ai ko sodium ko hange ko umea whakatolonga koe masima ai pe ia. Hange koe kai ma biskete ngai mea merie. Koe ngai mea kātoko ia. Pea ne toi pehe rewa koe whika wā koe diet. Lahi koe kai ko e kakano i manu. Hanga tau, anga ake tau, pore whoki he ai tau whanki puaka, koe tau mea whau tau angi ai. Koe hange koe puaka, koe hange koe hosi, koe tau ngahi lo i hosi, koe pul, koe ngai mea koe ia. Oku ne hanga e ia whatupunga ai whatu koe ia ai ho tau toto. Pea moe ngai mea kai ngako koe ni. Pea neongo pepe te pakapakau, pe te sino sisi, ka alu le vai ia o whatu ia o ne hanga ia, hange ia koa foi blockage, hange ia foi mea tawhi. Ka ireke toi lawai toto ia fe tawhi aki olo. Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Janine.
Thank you. And yes, I would recommend anybody who's more interested in that to look for Joy's talk on that. It's really good. She's a dietitian, and all dietitians, that's their area of expertise. They're really good. Yes, so heart disease in general is, for years, 80 years, in fact, the leading cause of disability and death in the United States. And it's not really going down very fast, unfortunately. And other nations too, who have processed food and lifestyles like ours, tend to have high rates of heart disease too. Cancer is the leading cause of death for Pacific Islander and Hispanic populations. Heart disease is actually second, but not a far second. And heart-related health issues vary among Asian and Pacific Islanders in their subpopulations. And that's just good to know, because we're not great at kind of separating those statistics and figures out. We're getting better at that in the national records and CDC, et cetera. But it's good to know that, the populations are different and what the risks are. So in 2014, Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders were 10% more likely to be diagnosed with coronary heart disease compared to non-Hispanic whites. And people who are overweight are more likely to suffer from high blood pressure, high levels of blood fats, diabetes, cholesterol increases, and those are all risk factors for heart disease and stroke. Adults with diabetes are twice as likely to have heart disease or stroke as people who do not have diabetes, and that is significant. And I believe my colleague, Dr. Sarah Babineau, and nurse case manager Molly Burns spoke about this on your radio show a few weeks ago, and they did a great job in reviewing diabetes. But that's a very high risk factor for both heart disease and stroke.
Yeah, Janine.
Yes.
Yeah, hi. I'm so sorry, that I kind of missed that part. I just saw a question that was texted me, about the stroke. What is the biggest thing that causing the stroke. And then the question also asks, what is the difference between the stroke and a heart attack?
Well, that's great timing because that was my next slide here, or area that I was going to bring up. So the main thing that increases a risk for stroke is atherosclerosis, which is a long word for arteries that become clogged. So similar to coronary artery disease, which is the heart blood vessels getting clogged, any blood vessels that can get clogged with the same material, which happens when people have obesity, diabetes,
I see.
high cholesterol, things like that. There's something called plaques that end up building up in the blood vessels, the arteries. And if those break off the blood vessels and travel to the brain,
Right.
that is what happens in the most common type of stroke, which is a blockage of blood or ischemic stroke. So I showed a picture here for those people who can see of the same cross section of the heart blood vessels or arteries that give blood and oxygen to the heart. The same thing can happen to the brain, where that blood supply and oxygen supply gets blocked. So that's why when we talk about heart disease and stroke, it's often in the same sentence that we say, well, the risks go up for both because they are very similar in what happens. There's blockage and there's a lack of blood flow and therefore oxygen, and death of those organs or areas of those organs can lead to serious problems and sometimes death. And I don't know if I answered the question about, what was the second question? It was what can lead to stroke.
Yes.
And then
I have another question here.
sure. Hopefully that answered the
Yes.
person's question.
Yeah, I have a question here. It's very similar to this one. What can our family do to improve our health and prevent devastating situation like heart attack? Ko hae mea mau family e lava ke mau ke tokoni ki o mau family ke lava o tuku ai mahaki koe ni pia mohono mau ki mau tolu. Koe hare vai mea te mau lava ke ta ofi ai a hono mau ki mau tolu e he heart attack pe koe stroke. So what can our family do to improve our health and prevent devastating situation like heart attack and stroke?
Yeah, I appreciate that question because, you know, it can be very devastating. Sometimes not. Sometimes people survive. Oftentimes they survive, but sometimes they don't. And oftentimes there are consequences with a heart attack or stroke where the person's quality of life is really changed, and that can affect the family, the community. If somebody cannot work or enjoy their lives, it's devastating. So the main thing I would say, here's some risk factors. Know what your risk factors are. And if you have them, you know, there are things you can do to try to minimize them or change them. People who are overweight or obese are more at risk of heart attack and stroke. High blood pressure is very high on the list of making a person at risk of heart attack and stroke. Smoking, very, very big risk factor. Cholesterol levels, diabetes, as we talked about. Family history, if you have a first degree relative like mother, father, sister, brother, those are really high on risk factors for heart attack and stroke. So knowing if you have any of those things or working with a healthcare team is the best first step, I would say, to prevention. I'm going to go to this slide. Prevention is key. Certainly not developing those things if you have, diabetes, controlling your diabetes, blood pressure, trying to lower blood pressure if you have that, and then making changes to get exercise and a healthier diet into your life. Those factors can help prevent heart disease and stroke, and sometimes, really reverse the risks and minimize the risks. So I would say trying the lifestyle changes and prevention, but also I would really encourage people to get partnering with a healthcare team. So not just a doctor or nurse practitioner, but all the people who can help make the changes to help your lifestyle and your health improve. So understanding if you have high blood pressure, it doesn't always have to be the doctor who helps reduce your blood pressure. It could be the nurse or even the dietitian or the physical therapist in your life. Just partnering with a team who understands you and making it an individualized program to help improve your health will reduce the risk of stroke and heart attack.
Thank you, Janine. I have another question. They just text me and saying, what can you recommend to us about what type of uh, things or food or lifestyle that we can do to keep us healthy and avoid having stroke and heart attack?
So I would say back to this slide with the, looks like family members, regular exercise and a healthy diet are wonderful to bring into a person's life and their routine. And I would say if your diet isn't the healthiest right now, it doesn't mean that it can't become better. And I would say the same thing about alcohol, smoking, weight, all the things that are hard to do to make changes and improve. I would highly encourage people to make small changes, because the small changes over a long period of time really can make lasting healthy changes and quality of life improvement. So let's just say with the diet, I like salty food just like everybody else, and fatty food too. But when I changed my diet a little bit and I get less salt in my diet, all of a sudden when I have something salty, it's really salty. So making the changes slowly can really adjust your taste buds. Same with fatty foods or meat. Sometimes when you make those changes slowly over time, a little bit goes a long way over, say, months or years. All of a sudden, you're not eating as much red meat or high salt, high fat foods, and those taste not as good as they used to. So I would say try to go slow. Same with exercise. Maybe don't go running up the biggest hill in your neighborhood, but maybe walk with your family for a few minutes around the neighborhood on a flat road, or go to one of the beautiful city parks in Seattle on a day like today, and make small changes over time that last. And I would also say partner with like somebody who wants to see you get healthy, whether it's a healthcare
Exactly.
team or a friend or a family member.
Yes.
It always works better when you do it together, because you have somebody cheering you on who wants to
Empower
maybe
each other.
get healthy too.
Yes. Hange koe whamatala kona a Janine, na ne pe koe mea maho inga taha ka pau ke loto, ke mo uilelei ho mafu pe ko heart, pea mo kai ke mao ko he heart attack. O pau ke whengi ke whamalosino. Ai hau ki whamalosino, pe ko lue, pe ko haki mea te ke whai. Pea osko ia mo maho inga ai mao mea tokoni. He ko tau mao mea tokoni ko ia pe koe o mo ui mea hata sino. Ka pā te tau lako pe ngā ko, ka fo i ko ngā sipi, ta tau pea pe ko te kaipoaka pe i kai ko ngā sipi, ko ngā pulu māsima. Ko i kātoa ko i alo i pe ko i ngā ko i pe. O koe kai ke pe he ku kovi ka pau te mao pe whakafuafua. He ku alo ki loto pe whenga ho tau pe ko ngai o kani ko ngai le minito tau sino. Ke nau ke whengai ke nau hanga o digeste me a kai ko ia. Pea ko a o te o whaingata. Pea aria nau nofo ai pe hange pe ko hata na ke a ki fō pe ko whakotu ha mea. O kai ke lava o fufulu pe mo whetawhi a ke toto he fula he whatu he ngai mea ke ngā ko mo ha fua māsima. O hoko ai pe mo ene lita weri anai os. O kai ke te lava tawhi pea lewa te pāka lava lewa. Al pe koe o the heart attack level because heart disease. Thank you so much. I just have this one little question here that's coming from this person saying, can you maybe recommend, if I don't get to go exercise every day, if I'm just home, is there anything that I could do at home, or I have to get out and walk around the block?
No, in fact, it's so rainy in Seattle. I think today is our first nice day
First nice day, yes.
in 7 months or so. So really exercise has to work for you. And, especially living where we live with the cold, rainy, gray days, it's hard to get outside. So, and if you can't go in your neighborhood or you're at home, there are exercise tapes and radio programs, dancing. I personally feel that if it's fun, it's a lot easier to do. And exercise, if it feels nice and feels fun, you're more likely to stick with it. If it feels like a chore, it's not gonna last. So I recommend doing something that you like. If it means being inside and stretching and doing cardiovascular exercises inside, they say, you should get your heart rate up. And again, work with a person or people who can make sure it's safe for you. I really want to emphasize, make it work for you, and it has to be safe for you. So individualized program for where you're at right now and starting slowly and making progress over time is the way to go so it lasts. And, they say like 2 days a week of heavier exercise, cardiovascular exercise, where you're sweaty and you feel your heart rate go up, or even 10 or 15 minutes, 5 days a week more often is good too. So it's really about moving. It's about getting it into your life. And it's never too late to start, and it's never too early to start. So I feel like kids and teenagers can do this too. And, if you're 80, it's still fine to start an exercise program. People feel better. They have more energy once they start after a little while. First, it makes you feel a little sore and tired, but over time you feel better. And I would just say work with, if you have a community health clinic or sometimes the community rec centers like Parks and Recreation, they have a lot of classes that are inside. I know my program, we have Zoom exercise classes. There's lots you can do inside that doesn't require you to be outside or walk.
Thank you, Janine. I have another question here. Before I go on, ko hange ko ne ngai whale i mahu inga ke te ki lue pako i loa whakawhitu unia i he uha mahu tawhea. Pea ka pau rewa koe ki te lava alkitua. Lava pe te aka pe ki taki Pascala pe i loto. Pea koe kai, pea tā pe te ngai whi whasi ko hiwa masim lata, pea koe te circuit TV, o tā mawhi i whasi ai, pea te tuis pe ki taia i api ko i ngā koe mea pe te ngawi ato sino ko i te mo i lelei ai pea. Ka whia mau ke te whate ki exercise, pea te ngawi ake mau mea toko ni mo i lelei. Ko ia koa, thank you Tapaida from Hawaii for joining us. Ko ilo foki Tapaida is on vegetarian, Pea ko ia o ku mahu inga ki tau whasisi e whamoi ki kai kakano, Ang ko lau ka to ta ko nea o pe ki tau ni manoa ko ha o motivi. Ko i ngā ko e ngai ka kano i manu o ku wea taim lahi koe ke lava o lai ke ngai mea toko ni ko niho tau sino. Pea whe ma o ke ki whasisi i hifo mo kai mea meri e hakai ke ta o ke. Ko e tau whenga pe ki ha mea e tokoni ki ho tau sino. Ke tau mo uilelei pe i he lolotonga e tau whanonga he maman koe ni. Thank you so much for all the health advice about the healthy heart and prevent the stroke. I have that one question. What about the medication that am I taking? Can they help, or it's better for me to prevent?
That's a great question. So I did want to touch on medications because I know a lot of people are on them, and there are really great medications for blood pressure, for cholesterol, for people who have had strokes or heart attacks. Sometimes there's other medications they need to take to prevent another heart attack or stroke. So my answer to that is, pardon me, it's really based on what your healthcare team has decided with you will work best for you and your individual situation. Because what I like to say is, please talk with your doctor, nurse practitioner, nurses, all the people who are on your healthcare team about what you're taking. And if you're not liking your medications or you have questions about your medications, communicate with them and ask a lot of questions so you understand what they are and what they do. Because yes, they can help prevent heart attack and stroke. And sometimes they need to be adjusted if they're not making you feel well, or if you need to switch to new ones. And they can be a huge part of preventing heart attacks and strokes. So the lifestyle changes and prevention through diet, exercise, those are constant, whether or not you're on medication. And they are really helpful either way. If you're not on medication, sometimes you can prevent going on medications. And if you're already on medications, sometimes they just make them work better. Or sometimes people need to be on less medications if their lifestyle changes are working. So I always say that's a constant to work on. And that's a really important thing to do for your health, is good, healthy lifestyle. But the medications, I would definitely say work with your team. It's good for them to know if you don't take them, please be honest with them. I have plenty of people who I thought I was changing their medications to help them, and I found out maybe they weren't taking all but one of 5 of them, or they didn't like, say, their number of pills they had to take. So all that information helps me to understand how to help that person feel the best they can and have the best quality of life. So yeah, medications, talk with your healthcare team about them.
Okay, thank you so much, Janine. We'll take a little, just like only 10-second here. We just put out, a little melodious song here from the South Seas, and then only 10-second, and then we'll continue on. We'll see up there.
Matamine angi mai lei e saute Wella I e ui ae o tu felenite Ongo mai o hange ano erile O pehe ange mai e hoko maupe
Thank you so much, Janine, for explaining all this great benefit, how to have a healthy heart and also prevent the stroke. We're trying to prevent the heart disease like heart attack and the stroke. Aia koe tau kawenga e ahoni, ka pau kia ha mo whehui, ka mo ka taki o tohi mai pehe ata, e koe ni o ko lava peke tari atu e he tō tā koe ni ai ngai whehui koe ni o toko atu. Mau inga whoki, koe tau iloga ngai mea te tau lava toko niai ke tau kau tau reke reka. Ai ko lo se pina tu I tupo, exercise from home. YouTube has all sorts of exercise you can follow and it's free. This person here was just add on, you can just go to YouTube and watch some exercise, and you can do that from home and it's all free. Thank you so much, Losipina, for adding on. So we'll have that one last question here that just came. What other signs, because my aunties just had a stroke last year, and she's just survived, but she's almost like a bedbound person. What are some of the signs, that I could tell, because she was not big or highest obese. She was just a very small person, but unfortunately, that the whole family has to go through on that to take care of our auntie. So I think the main question she was asking, what are some of the signs that will maybe give you an alert? Hana hangai wha ilonga. Ka pawe ke ongo I he tahaya koe ake ne ilo koe e mauia e he pāka lava. A kia ina hangai whaka ilonga te lava o tala, ke te lava tokoni ai. Ke whai hano awiki whare mahaki, because prevention is better than cure. Ke taimi, ki moa pia toki hoko whaingata. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. So, yeah, there are not always really obvious signs. Unfortunately, sometimes there are, sometimes they're subtle, sometimes there are none. And I would say the main thing, because we can't always count on being overweight or having high blood pressure to know if a person's at risk of stroke, but I would again say having regular appointments with a medical team just to know if there's anything that may be revealed that maybe they can catch through a wellness visit. You don't have to have a reason to go have those visits regularly, annually at a minimum, just to catch things. But even blood pressure, sometimes that can creep up without a person knowing. And I would say stop into the drugstore, fire department, all those places that you can check your blood pressure if you don't feel like making an appointment. Sometimes a community health fair, sometimes they do blood pressure checks, but I would say regular health screenings like checking blood pressure, cholesterol, and for diabetes are ways to understand if something shows up. But we can only do so much. Sometimes all our best efforts, being healthy, exercising, eating well, sometimes there's still genetics that are involved that we can't necessarily control. But I hope your auntie's okay and in the state she's in with their family, and thank you for your support of her, because we have many people in our program who have that. So it's very nice to hear that family is helping.
Thank you. I think you answered most of the question. Aia koe ngai whahino hino peke ngai tawhaki koe ia e lava to koni koe ke moilelei. Aia koe hango mea lahi pe mo toka nga e te mea to koni whaka aho o fumahau inga pa te ki exercise pe whai pe api pe te alu ka whare whamalosino pe te lue halai lahi whoke o haia ho tau whetu un. Pea ka pau o ko ke lava o lue te ke o kaurelei pe ka pap I kai ang ko lau ka lo sapina ke lava pe ko ia o sio hi YouTube ke ngahi whamalo sino ko ia ki ke ngawe aki pe a ko me ia mahalo e tokon lahi ai. Thank you so much, for all the health advice, that helps our community, our Pacific Islanders community abroad. So you can go ahead and continue on, with whatever that help prevent significant health disease. Thank you.
Thank you for having me today.
Oh, thank you. Do we have any other persons or Janine?
I'm happy to answer more questions if you have them.
Okay, I think that I just have that one little question here that just please if you can write it, like on the comments on the Facebook Live, that would be great, and much easier instead of the messenger. Okay, this question here that comes from Marianne Atenaiti Konefehui. How about if I do want to live on practicing the healthy diet, but I'm very busy a lot of times, and I don't really get much time to rest. What can you advise? Do I really need to get my body rest, or everything has to go together? Because a lot of time I only have 4 to 5 hours sleep. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't mention sleep, and I'm glad she brought it up. Stress in general and sleep are part of healthy lifestyle changes, and I didn't emphasize those two. But stress absolutely can raise your blood pressure. We all feel that when we're stressed in a certain moment, or if we have a really hard day or a hard week. But over time, that is not healthy to have stress for long periods of time. And I know sometimes we have to do what we have to do to get by, but I would again encourage you to think about how to bring a little more sleep and a little less stress into the overall picture of health, because those two things over time can impact how you're doing, and they are adding risk to having certain things happen with heart disease and stroke for sure, and just inflammation in the body can create an unhealthy environment and less of a healthy way of being. So more sleep, less stress, somehow bringing exercise into the day, maybe taking away something that doesn't need to happen, that can add another hour or two of sleep maybe to the night.
Thank you. Hange pe ko ia ne fale mai o mato aki maho inga ke tau malolo. He koe konga pe ia o e mo ui lelei, ko healthy lifestyle. Aia o ku kawai ai mohe. Pe a mo fasisi e te stressed out. Stressed out ko e hange ko kai ke nonga pe fie maari e te mo ui. E me I longa pe a whahinga ko nau nonga mo nau ma o fie maari e o nau mo ui foloa. Pe ka lahi lewa e te hoha a mo kai ke nonga hotoloto mo fie maari e. Ko e mea kui ko te tānaki mai pe a ko kau wai pe ia ki hoto heart ai mea ko kui ko e ue sia e hoha ko loto mamahi ko depressed. Katoa umea ko ni. Ko umea katoa ne ue sia. Like making you depressed, making you stressed. We all practice a healthy lifestyle. Ko ia fasisi e ha mea ko ke ilo o ko kaiki sai ka koe, pea ke whaka ehi mea. He fuwhia mau ia ke tau mo ui lelei, mau mea toko ni mo ui lelei, whamalo sino. I saw this one here. I was hoping that you guys could ask the question on the our live Facebook stream, but it's keep popping up, on the text messages, asking, what about the water? Is it okay to drink a lot of water into the body, or it's not good? Thank you.
Well, most people don't drink enough water. That's true. And if we're dehydrated, generally we're not as energized and feeling as good as we can feel. But I will say some people with heart disease, and this is only for people who have like heart failure, sometimes drinking a ton of water can make them feel worse. So they should know by talking with their healthcare team what is the right amount for them as an individual. But in general, I will say most people don't drink enough water, and we drink too much caffeine, which and alcohol, which are
Yes.
both diuretics, and they release water from your body. So
Right.
it has the opposite of effect of hydrating you and making your fluids enough in your body. So alcohol and caffeine get rid of fluid. So water, yes. I mean, most people, a couple liters a day is really a general rough estimate, but it has so many factors. Like if you exercise more, some people need less, and it's individualized. But I'd say most of us are dehydrated most of the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Janine. Thank you for all the great information, that you share with us. That is such an inspiring and also motivating us, to live on a healthy lifestyle. Thank you so much, and we do greatly appreciate your advice. And we wanted to let the listeners know this is from the Providence Elderplace. This program here is sponsored by Providence Elderplace and Food Equity Fund. So this one here for elderly that need to have a better place, that you can go see all the specialties and a medical doctor, and they have different programs because the purpose is to keep the elderly safe and happy and comfort in one place. So, and stay home, not in a facility. No other place like home. But you have all the medical, coverage, they can pick you up and they can transport you. Just like what she was advising, that's exactly what you're going to get from the Providence Elderplace. Ko tamu ape ke na toni ka matua ka to rekreka ke mo na fo pe api o fia fatahai mo family. Ko telefone te ke ta ki ai ko wana ono tolu valu no ataha. Ia pe ko o fetu taki anga tona pe ko na ofisi. The office number is 206 320 5325 206 320 5325, and that's the office number 206 320 5325, and that is the Providence Elderplace. Thank you so much, Janine, and we're looking forward to have a program with you in the future. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Sylvia, and best wishes for all your listeners for long lives and good health. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you, and thanks a lot. Now we'll give you another little melodious music from the South Seas by Ulysses. That's our legendary musician from the islands of Tonga, which he's now passing. But we will have a great program interviewed for him on Monday. So I also welcome Lorna. Is Lorna here? Okay.
Folauka pasamehe halatau fa Amerika lahimo ono folaua kita I te noa maupe si I fungasia Te uhi mehi wape mo fia fia He ala ha o manongi o e kau mea Tuku ke muoni a e ki ilea Misi e fuku o baba kone a whaingata Misi e fuku o baba kone a whaingata Misi e fuku o baba
Thank you. Welcome, Lorna. That's from the City of Seattle Food Equity Fund. For those of you who are listening here in the Seattle area, this is a great opportunity to share with your groups, your church, or any groups, whaikawa. Koe ai, ke mō ngawe ake whenga mare koe ni. Pea koe kai koe mea whenga mare koe ni, ke peheke ke nofa pe Seattle. Kai kei pe ko CVC ke whakahoko atu I Seattle, ka lava pe ke mō teu, pe haki mea te mō lava ke mō ngawe aki, ka oko lava ke mauai ai toko lahi koe ni, e toki o atu ia e Lorna, ia koto tafa whonga ia, from the City of Seattle. Welcome, Lorna. That's also one of our sponsorship to the broadcast of the Pacific Islanders. Lorna, welcome again. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. We'd like to ask you, Tino, please, if you can just explain again, Tino, like what is the food equity grant?
Thank you so much, Miss Sylvia, for inviting myself and also Lisa Obamoto, the other project manager at Food Equity Fund. There are 4 of us in the Food Equity Fund programming, and it's part of the Office of Seattle. We appreciate you, your leadership and helping us outreach and talk about this grant opportunity to your community. And what it is a new grant program that's specifically around investing in community-led and community-identified projects that will increase equitable access and opportunities to learn about, to grow, and or to eat healthy, affordable, and also culturally relevant foods. And the funding comes from the sweetened beverage tax, and it's through the recommendation of the Sweetened Beverage Tax Community Advisory Board, comprised of community members who are specifically wanting to really target and invest in communities that's most impacted by health and economic inequity. And so that's like the general overview of what this grant is about. And then Lisa, if you want to jump in and talk about the tier 2 funding that's coming up, the deadlines and the application process for folks who are interested in applying and who's eligible and who can apply.
Sure. So
Lisa.
just quickly, the Sweden beverage tax dollars was only being collected in Seattle. So the project and the only restriction for this project is the project activity and major project activity does have to occur in Seattle. Right now, we again thank you very much for Sylvia for your help for us, and I feel very honored to be on this program to kind of promote our tier 2 funding opportunity. Earlier, Lorna mentioned about the purpose of the grant, and then we actually have 2 different types of funding, tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 is for a smaller project, but currently that's not open right now. And what's open right now is a tier 2 funding, which is for award up to, award amount between $80,000 to $150,000 project, and it's for project that can span from 15 to 24 months. And then right now, and then the deadline to apply is actually 11:59 p.m. on April 30th. What There's a lot of information into it, and we'll love to share more. I do want to use this opportunity to maybe promote our we're gonna have one final informational workshop that kind of go through the application process and provide some tips. That's gonna be virtual workshop, and it's gonna be on April 12th, 2022, from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And if you're interested in, please contact us. I'm actually gonna try to share the link information in the chat. But if you need that information to email it to you, you can feel free to give us a call. Lona, you may want to share your phone number, but my phone number is 206-858-1673, or call our hotline, which is the Food Equity Fund hotline at 206-727-FOOD, which is 3663. But I'll go ahead and post that information in the chat as well. So my phone number, my work phone number, cell phone number is 206-858-1673. But people are also feel free to try the hotline, and that's 206-727-3663. And Lona, if you want to share your phone number, that would be fine too.
Yes, my number is 206-684-0215.
Well, I would say the most important is that if a group of community member, you're very interested in or are currently doing any kind of project that sort of help increase access for people to learn, to grow, or to have more healthier, culturally relevant food, and then your project is in Seattle, should try to consider give us a call, because we'd love to hear more about what you are doing, and to see if this funding may be an opportunity that you want to give a try. It is a competitive process, but then again, we're really interested, and we really want to invest the dollar into the people that are the most impacted by. So we'll really love to talk to you and learn more about your project ideas.
Oh, that's great.
That's correct. And then Sylvia, just to clarify, but it is for project that is for anywhere from 15 months to 24 months. So just want to make sure that 15 months to 24 months. So we do expect the applicant does need to be from Seattle. So we were in this case, we do know a lot of time, even I don't live in the city of Seattle, but then there's people that work or study or learn and in Seattle, even though if they don't live in there. But what we probably will encourage is that I'm sure that if you are able to do that type of activity in Seattle, you probably already have a strong network of people in Seattle. And then part of things that Lona had mentioned earlier is the program is really our interesting in funding that project that are community led and community identify. So we were quite encouraged you to kind of identify a community group and that has a Seattle address to be the main applicant to apply. And Lona, feel free to add a jump on if there's anything you want to add.
Yeah, it's because it is through the Seattle Sweet and Beverage Tax. We want to make sure like a lot of the project activities or the location of the project needs to be serving people who live, work, and play in Seattle. And we understand there's been a lot of, people moving outside of Seattle because of a lot of like, raising rent, or it's harder to be more affordable. We totally understand that. And so we want to make sure in terms of the community group who's creating this program or this project, as long as they have a Seattle address and they're the main applicant, then they are eligible to apply. And so when we say if you're a community group or an ad hoc group, meaning like a group of people coming together because there is a need that you're serving. So the only requirement that we have is that it needs to be coming from an applicant who has a Seattle address. The activities needs to be happening in a location that has a Seattle address. But we also understand that, the need for food and people looking for culturally relevant food is pretty large and pretty extensive. So those are just some of the requirements that we have for this grant.
Thank you so much, Lona, for clarifying that. Hange pe ko ia una osfa matala tu ko uhinga pe ko e ha oni pe me he text ko ia aya ko kautaha ko ia nge ko Coca-Cola na tu foki Seattle ai on kautahani pe ko mai me ai silini ko ni pe ko me ia ko fa ame ko ke ngawe ake kakai ko na no Seattle. Aya ka ko kai ko pe he ia te ke no Seattle. Ke lava pe ha ta ma fe tu pe ka ke pe ke mo fra ho ko se ves ko ni i Seattle. Pe ko ia ka parewa kona te mautuka te whika telefoni ka taki pe e neta 206-858-1673 for Lisa Uemoto, and also Lona 206-684-0215. Aya koe na telefonia ke ngawe, pe koe call directly to 206-727-FOOD. Fitu a fitu food. E mana tui pe whareko koe food. Ua na ono fitu a fitu food. Pea te taila le vaia e lava pe ke nau fia mao ke nau aratu o whahino hino. Pea koe ngahi tokoni koe ni o whaingofua pe. Thank you so much. I think you answered all the questions and we're looking forward to seeing you soon, tomorrow and Saturday, and we have some groups also for next week too. There's a lot of people are very much interested. So like they said, there's a smaller project, but then that's a tier number 1. But tier number 2, it's 80,000 for food equity fund, up to 150,000. Ai pa paanga valumano, ke paanga taha kilo ni mamano, pea koe ngā we koe ki mahina pe taha nima, ka te whafofua lewa, te nau lava pe o tokoni mai, ko tō taha pe he wike. Ko ki tō taha pe wike e whaingofua pe ko tānaka ngoi ko ngai apsiasi, ko e ngahi kulupu wha community, ko e ngahi hange ko kau whai kawa, pe ko hape ha organized group, te mō lava pe o apply ki ai, ke mō ngawe aki a whainga maari ko ni. Okay, I just have this one last question here. Okay, this question here is from John Debron. He's asking if do I need to buy the food or that's part of the money that's coming and we can use that to buy the food. Thank you.
That's a great question. So maybe we can talk about the project activities and the program activities that people can do, or actually people are already doing and the community are already doing.
Oh.
And so some of the activities around what kind of, where the funding can go to could be around food production. And so it could be gardening or farming, the growing of food, the preparation of food. It could also be around the buying of food in order to create hot meals for people, for the community. It could also be around education around food and understanding what is healthy food. What does it mean to eat, food that is from your culture? Buying food that's from your culture too, in order to create dishes that you're familiar with and offering that to the community. Meal services, creating a food pantry, job training and skills around food activities, having a farm stand. And so those are some of the program activities that the funding can go to. And so, yes, definitely you can purchase food, culturally relevant food to feed your community. You can hire people, use the funding to hire a cook to prepare the meals, hire someone who's helping manage the volunteers or helping coordinate all the activities. And so those are some of the areas where this funding can go to. So like the 15 to 24 months project, the $80 to $150,000 can go to all the different project activities and program activities. And so when you're applying to this grant, be really thoughtful about what are the activities that you're doing, how much it's going to cost, and then who are the people who are going to be implementing the projects and the programs.
Right.
And then what is your timeline? Like, is it 15 months? Is it 24 months? How long is this program? And so it's going to be a competitive process. And so we want to make sure that whoever, it's by community review. So it's people from the community will be reading these application. And because there's going to be a lot of they need to know exactly like what the activities are, how much, and who the people implementing it. So they have a clear idea of what the project is. And so hopefully that's helpful information for those people who are interested in applying.
And hi there, Lauren. My name is Celia. I work for King County Public Health. But this would all have to be pre-written out in their RFA or RFP.
It's the program activities and the project activities.
Yeah, kind of like a work plan.
Yeah, it'll be like a work plan.
They couldn't freestyle it and say, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to do what I do with my community, right? It all has to be in congruence for that 15 to 24 months, correct?
Yes, it needs to align, and like, this is my activity, this is how much it's going to cost, and these are the people, even if they haven't hired anybody yet, but they have an idea on like, oh, I think I'm going to need this person to do this and this person to do this. Even if there's no name, they can just put a title, program coordinator. The cook is going to cook the meals. And that should be enough to give a picture of like what this activity would look like.
Very nice. I'm glad.
And how many awards you guys giving out?
So it's hard to say how many, just because so people can submit project anywhere between 80,000 to 150,000, but we have about $2 million allocated for tier 2. So that's why I think it will be competitive. But then, so we're hoping that if you are interested, we really want to try to provide our support in terms of working with you. At least let's make sure the information that you provided on the application, make sure everything is eligible, but then also kind of provide some tips to kind of share with you. Of course, so that's kind of what we are here for. We're sort of provide that technical support.
Sure, and this is a reimbursable grant, right? Like,
yes.
they would need to submit their receipts to get their money back. There's no upfront money. Like, if you get the $80,000 award, here's 80,000, go spend it. It's more spend your allotted money, send your receipts back to the city, wait 30 to 45 days, then you'll get your money back, right?
So our yes and no. So it is reimbursable. You are correct, because it's tax dollars, public dollars, and then we do need to account for the receipts. But then we don't take 30 and 40 days to process. And I'm actually really proud of that.
Okay. Oh, good for you guys. Maybe that's King County.
Only the King
So
County do that.
actually,
I
even
like the
on the
city of Seattle
contract, even on
fast.
yeah, even on our contract, actually, we kind of talk about 10 business day.
Oh, that's
But
great.
then to be honest, because we work so closely with the community, and I had to say, we're not great, but our accounting team are really great because they know that a lot of time these are grassroots community organization. So a lot of time we try to work around. Sometimes if they submit it, approve it, they're able to get it turned around within 2 or 3 days.
Oh,
Yeah, but then I shouldn't say that out loud in the radio
I mean,
because the
it's
safety
recorded.
is.
It's recorded. We're gonna come back and say Lisa said 2 to 3 business days. We need
But
our
then
money.
on the contract, they say at least, well, not at least, but then the contract is they are really working to try to provide reimbursement claim, approved one, and back in about 10 business day. I think the challenge sometimes is not so much as the turnaround time, but it's more of working to get all the right paperwork. And
Mm,
then that is also where, if you are awarded and get selected, that's where the project manager came in, because we want to really kind of work closely with you to kind of coordinate all that. So then you start getting used to it. So I could see, yeah, maybe for the first claim, people kind of go through it a little bit more, and then you may feel like, oh, this is kind of question, but then that's kind of what we do. Our job is to really work closely with the awarded um, grantees and to kind of go through that process. But you are still correct. I mean, still reimbursement. So you do still have to sort of, upfront the money and upfront the cost. And sometimes that can be a burden to a smaller nonprofit. And then so some of the stuff, I think at the last I kind of mentioned is that that's also why if we notice that your community group, we actually do require that you do have a nonprofit 501c3 fiscal sponsor that can kind of help you. And then we understand if the fiscal sponsor is going to help you to kind of manage those and sort of give you some upfront money, to help with the cash flow. They do deserve some fee for services. So you could charge up to 10% of your project total. So if you would have ended up request a grant of 150,000, 10% of that would be $15,000 goes to your fiscal sponsor to kind of help. So those are kind of things that we do, kind of sort of address some of the issue. But now, unfortunately, right now we're still really reimbursement based.
yeah, because that indirect cost would still be a part of the billing cycle. It's not like the city or this grant would pay them the 10% upfront, correct?
Um, it usually with the fiscal sponsor, it's you are probably correct because we wouldn't recommend the grantee to do that because the applicant can have, what if they didn't like the fiscal sponsor that they have and then they decided to change?
For
So
sure.
paying upfront that would be a problem. But then that's kind of the things where then we're encouraging grantee to really talk with the fiscal sponsor to figure out what makes sense. Some of the fiscal sponsor were kind of billed every time you submit a claim, and then they take 10% of that claim because they figure out by the end it all kind of work out, right? Because they're
Hmm.
10% fee. Some fiscal sponsor may just have a regular monthly charge, right? But however that is when we contract it, we'll have a amount that's being allocated. If let's say your contract budget is 10%, then that's amount that this grant would pay. So if you ended up incur more expenses with more your physical sponsor, unfortunately, then that's kind of out of us, um, if that makes sense.
No, that does. It's just tricky though, because you either as that coalition or that team coming together are going to have that money to give to the fiscal sponsor to pay off the food and then get reimbursed back, or that fiscal sponsor have to have the capacity or the financial capacity to cover those community folks who are going to get reimbursed later. But I mean, I still think it's a wonderful opportunity, and I'm just so grateful that you guys are
Yes, it is.
presenting it to our community.
Yes, it is. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lona, and also Lisa, for taking the time. Thank you, Silly, for asking those questions. That some of the listeners, like to hear more about it and get the full understanding and make it very clear. But thank you, Tino. These are very relevant, and I think we count it as a blessing, and For those of you that thinking about like doing that, yes, you're more than happy to. You can always call, and there is a phone number on a food equity fund, Netta, if you wanted to enlarge it, so that everybody could look at it. But we will definitely have a lot of the group, that we're referring. Uh, once I got that, I will let you know so you can come and share the information that you're being invited to one of the Samoan Association tomorrow. And then also on Saturday, there's also another group in the Seattle area, a Tongan group, and also on Sunday you don't have anybody, but we'll have the appointment tomorrow and also Saturday, and we have another couple more appointments, for next week too. Thank you so much, Lisa and Lona for taking the time to share this. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for our people. Ko e whainga mālia ni ke mō ngāwe aki. Mō whetū take hanga tona pe ke telefoni kona tuku atu. E lava ke whetū take ta Lisa, pe ko Lona, ke nā auto tokoni i ke au ke whawhonu ko ia o mō application. O e loto si I he lava lele pe ke whāno ngāwe aki. Thank you again.
Sylvia, do you mind if I do another plug on something?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to also say that earlier we kind of talked about the award. So the project is a competitive process because there's only $2 million, right? And but at the same time, the project being selected to a community review process. So if there are Seattle residents or people work or play at Seattle, and that you are interested to be a community reviewer, we are also looking for that. And then, there's a stipend to be a community reviewer because we don't know how many applications will come in and they will review. There's a $750 stipend. But then I just want to kind of do a quick plug. So if people are interested to be a community reviewer to review grants for Food Equity Fund for Tier 2, please also let us know. We're happy to send you the application for that.
Thank you. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Hange ko yang ne tuku mai ko no pepe ai whainga māli ka pau ke whi loto ke kau he community reviewer program. Ko whika telefoni, ko I wana aono, walu ni mawalu, taha aono fitu tolu. Whitu take hanga tono ke pe ko kia Lisa Uemoto. Lisa Uemoto wana aono, walu ni mawalu, taha aono fitu tolu. Thank you so much, Lisa, and we definitely put out the information. Netta, did you put out the phone number? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did share the phone number and also Lona's phone number. Thank you for the wonderful information. That is a blessing, and we'll continue to work on it. And the deadline is on April 30th, right?
Yes,
Yes.
April 30th is the deadline, 11:59 p.m. And I'm so happy that we're able to talk about it so early in the month.
Yes.
And so for people who are going to apply, we actually encourage you to send in the first draft of your application and we'll read it. We'll give you feedback and then you can resubmit again as the final one. And so if you have applications you want us to read, get it to us maybe 2 weeks before the deadline. So that gives us time to really give you a lot of feedback. But it's wonderful, Miss Sylvia, what you're doing. We appreciate your time and also letting us talk about it so early on so people can prepare and understand what the process is. This is for Tier 2. We are having another round of the funding for Tier 1 sometimes later in the year. And so for folks who are interested and have project ideas and they feel they're not ready right now, there will be another opportunity later in the year. But for folks who are already doing great work in the community who are ready to apply, please apply April 30th, 11:59 p.m. is the deadline.
And the cool part about that is the application for Tier 1 and Tier 2 are pretty similar. So and then we can start, that's why I was thinking if you have idea, come and talk to us and then we can start working with you step by step. And I also want to give a shout out to Silly. Did I pronounce your name? I love your questions and thank you for always advocating for the community and for your, representative group. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sure,
thank you,
yeah.
Silly.
Silly is a project manager, for the Seattle King County Public Health, and I'm glad that he come in and ask all the questions, so that way we got all the answers.
No,
Well,
and then there are really good questions too. So thank you.
Yes.
well,
Thank you so
well,
much.
working for county, I know we create a lot of barriers for BIPOC communities. So I'm just like, okay, I ask ourselves these questions all the time, but I think you guys had great answers. And yeah, I
Yes.
really encourage folks to jump on those trainings that they have and get your applications in early because it sounds like the team wants to help.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa and Lona, and I will stay connected, to you both as we have a lot of referral, and interest from our Pacific
Yes.
Islanders community. Thank you again.
That's
Thanks
amazing.
again.
Thank you.
Yes. And have a great weekend, and we'll talk soon.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll, before you leave, we have this melodious song here from one of our legendary musicians. He just, unfortunately, we missed him, and everybody missed his voice. But we'll play this song here. It's like in honor of him. We'll have a special program in tribute of him. But that is this song here. It's beautiful, melodious from the South Pacific Islanders. Yes.
Matamine angi mai, lei he saute. Wela I he ui ae o tu felenite. Ongo mai o tange, hango erile. O pehe ange mai, e hoko maupe. Folau ka pasamei he, alata ufa. Amerika lahimo, ono folaua. Ono e a whakalata mai ke te kita. Ki te noa maupe, si infumasia. Te uhi behi wape, tuku ke mooni a e ki ilea. Misi e fuku o wawa, koe me a whaingata. Folau ka pasamei he, alata ufa. Amerika lahimo, ono folaua.
Okay, this is our third part of our program today. At first, we started with the Providence Elderplace. O ko whamanatu atu ka ki mō tolu ko ia o ka hamo kia kiwa pe mō matu atua. Ko i polo kalama koe ni ai Providence Elderplace. Ko i tau mua ke toko ni e kau tōreke reka. Ke o te mō end up e koe o nofo ha nursing home. He ko ala pe me alele. Koe ke tohela ia koe tā. Ala pe me alele o ta koe o ave koe ki ho appointment. Pe ko whetu pe taha ko ka toke tā. O ke ai katoa e nau kau specialist ke nifo ke mata. Koe mae koe ai ho su. Koe nau whetu ke whae whamalosina. Lava katoa pe whetu koe ni. A o ki he ngahi medical equipment hange koe walker, koe wheelchair, koe mohe ana. Hapea ngai mea nau ilo e tokoni. Ko ia monga we ake whainga maari koe ni Providence Elderplace. Ko ia mo whetu taki ake lewa ia ahoni. Ki he whika telefoni ko ia kona tuku atu ko ia i he ata. Ke mō ngawe aki. Ko e whainga maari e lele ieni ke mō lava o ngawe aki ai Providence Elderplace. He ko i ngā oku whaingofua au pito ai ngahi polo kalama ke koe ni pia e tokoni lahi ia kia ki mautolo hono kotoa. Ko ia ko o whetutaki pe koe ke Providence Elderplace, ke lava ke ngawe aki ai whainga mari koe ni, koe whika telefoni, koe ua noa ono, tolu wa noa, nima tolu wa nima. Ua noa ono, tolu wa noa, nima tolu wa nima. Koe Providence Elderplace ia. Nofa pe ke api o fia ai, pea koe ngai appointment ke toi taha, ka pau o kai ke whainga mari o family, na os ala pe na tolu o piki apu koe ia whainga taimi pe. Ke aluai ki ho appointment ni. Koe pātu na matai whai ai talanoa na tuk os koe ni, whikau aki pa moi Food Equity Fund. Food Equity Fund, ana whahoka tuia e Lisa we moto pe pefo ki a lona, koe kau whafofonga ia, ki he polokalama koe ni ke mo apply ki ai, pe neongo pe o whe mau ke tuwha mea kai i he ka resident ko ia i se ato, pe ke mo ngawe aki, ka koe mahina tahanima ke mahina e wanoa, pe ko to taha pe he wiki ho mo whakahoko e ngawe koe ni, ka kamata me he fund koe ni paanga valmano, ke paanga taha kilo nima mano. Ka kona na osi tuwange mai, ka lava pe ke mo whetu tak whahatona ki ai, koe ngā ke na wata otokoni ke hono whakafon ho mo application. O kai pe ngai ki i mea ke whai kia ha mui ki ai. Koe telefoni, koe wanoa ono, fitu a fitu food. Pe koe wanoa ono, wale mawalu, taha ono fitolo. Tawa mai ke konga no tolu, koe tau last part of the day. Koe tau whafofonga ini ki he mei he King County, Seattle King County Public Health. Ko tau Siri Kalepo, koe project manager ia, o ne whafonga i ai tau tolu koe Pasifiki. Pea koe te koleang ki ai, ke ne o atu hangai whanongonongo o whe mao ke tau ilo ki ai. Thank you so much, Silly, for all your hard work. Thank you for supporting our broadcast and also our Pacific Islanders community to live in a healthy lifestyle. What is something that maybe the latest updates, from the Seattle King County Public Health for our people, our community abroad? Thank you.
Yeah, I have just some quick communications comms updates that I want to share with everyone. But really quick, before I jump into that, I just want to thank those folks who joined us last month for our Pacific Islander community conversation with Dr. Malik Fuimaono, mental health specialist Scarlett Ekramona, and Pastor Ofalangi. It was a very productive community conversation,
Yes.
and I heard from a lot of folks that we want to have it again. So if
Yes.
I'm dropping stuff in the Facebook live chat, but I mean, if there's other topics or community conversations you want to talk about, my name and information is in there. So feel free to, DM me, so direct message me. And we hope to have something hopefully soon in May. I wanted to do something in April, but I don't want to rush it. I want it to be something that we should consider as a Pacific Islander community. And there are just some other cool things hopefully coming around the table relative to this Thursday time when I'm on the broadcast. But I am going to share my screen and continue with our communications update for April 7th, 2022.
April 7th? When is the next one?
Oh, the next one, I don't know. The next one's hopefully sometime in May. But as I said, I want to, gather community feedback, input. Should we invite the same specialists? Should we bring on different ones? What are some of the topics community wants to talk about? Because the last one was really about, the COVID and just some of the concerns relative to younger folks who couldn't get the vaccine. There was COVID in the Bible. And then we also talked about mental health issues and the taboo within Pacific Islander cultures of not talking about it. And from mental health specialist Scarlett Ekramona, kind of her feedback. And then also we heard from Pastor Ofalangi as he gave his perspective of, working within the community, because, there's both the mental and the spiritual side So yeah, I think it's open ended, but I'm hoping sometime in May, maybe May 26th, as we, again, gather feedback from what community wants to hear about and talk about.
Oh, thank you so much, Silly. Yes, talking about the previous webinar last Thursday, aya ko e whakaamu ka pau ki ai ha mo tānaki mai pe ka mea te mo pehe e tokoni pe ka ngai whi hui pe o mai ki mua ko i ngā whamatala ko na Silly. Na whakahoko i e to preluru ko sina lea Pastor Ofalangi from the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Auburn. Aya ko Ofalangi o whaitekawe sias ko na sias awhitu ko nei Auburn. Pea pehe whoki kia ki nau tolu angero tokta fui maono. Lava leo tokoni mai ho tau kakai ki tau potano ki nau tolu. Ka ngai mea e tokoni mo whakalaka. Pea na e whaafu ofa apito, it went really well. And it was very effective, and I think that we'll have another one coming up in May. Once we have the date, and also please feel free to give us your feedback or any input to help us, go on to a bigger, engagement, with our community. That's the main purpose is to promote a better lifestyle, for all of us. Thank you.
Oh, yep. And my name is on the chat box within Voice of the South Pacific, so feel free to reach out. But communications updates. So right now we're still pushing that booster, that first booster dose. Who should get it? Who should get that booster shot? Everyone ages 12 and older, at least 5 months after their second dose of Pfizer or Moderna, or 2 months after your first dose of Johnson and Johnson, um, to complete that vaccine boosted series. So for public health, we really still want to boost our community and are encouraging folks to get that first booster. And then there's questions about a second booster. Who can get a second booster or that fourth shot? So the second booster has been authorized for people ages 50 and older, folks who are age 12 and older who are immune compromised, and then ages 18 and older who received Johnson & Johnson for their primary and their first booster dose. So this is if someone got Johnson & Johnson twice. I don't know why someone would do that, but you would be qualified for that second booster shot. Because remember, Johnson & Johnson was only one dose, and then they were allowing folks to get a Johnson & Johnson booster, and then now you can get the second booster for Johnson & Johnson.
Oh, thank you, Silly. Ko ni ko toki iloin I ahoni ta ko to fe ma second booster. Second booster, Silly. That's something that I was not aware of. So this is a second booster that just came up when that was starting.
Yeah, so I believe that got authorized. I don't know off the top of my head, but it was just recently. And the criteria around the second booster is folks, ages 50 and older, folks who are ages 12 and older who are immune compromised, and then folks who received Johnson & Johnson for their primary and their first booster shot.
Aya ko hange ko ne whamatala ko ki mo tolu ko ia o kulama ke mo qualify ke mo ngawe aki ai huhu takai to oua ko ni aya ko booster dose. Aya ko na pehe whaka wha huho no tolu ia. So booster dose, I just have a question here. Is the booster dose is almost like another fourth shot?
Yeah, if you're past the 5 months of your first booster dose, right? So if you've taken your complete Pfizer series, had your first booster dose, it's been 5 months, you fall within the criteria of ages 50 and older, you can get a second booster dose or fourth shot.
Okay, Celia, I have just a quick text here asking, do they do any study to make sure that this is safe, or it may cause, any side effects like blood clot or anything?
Yeah, there has been studies done. I couldn't quote them off the top of my head, right now, but I mean, I could get the information and relay it back to the person who has questions. But yes, I mean, this was FDA approved through the CDC, so I don't think they would be giving out a second booster shot without approval.
So koinia oku ta koinia oku ta tok ilo ta toria ta koinia to lere ta kai ue hu. Na ta pe ta to foi uh, ko booster dose pe ko foi ta kai no tolu ta koinia to ai second booster. Ai we ko second booster ai ko foi um hange pe ha foi hu hono fa eni. Pe ko ataia ki mo tolu ko 50 years and older ta oni manoa o whaia ki olonga. Ta ni manoa ka pau ke ta ni manoa lava le ke ngawe again. So anybody who's 50 years and older can use the second booster dose, but not anybody's younger than that.
Yeah, assuming they've gotten their complete series and it's been 5 months since their first booster dose.
Okay, thank you so much, Silly. I'm glad
And
to see that that's something really new, and I'll make sure to share it out, to people.
yeah, and if you give me that community member's name and email address, I can follow up with our communications team regarding the research or the approval of the second booster dose or the fourth shot. But I can check with you offline.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. This is a big announcement, because the COVID-19 second booster was not even aware, that there's another one. This is the first time for me to hear, but I'm glad.
Yeah, and again, the boosters are authorized for anyone, again, ages 50 and older, anyone who's age 12 and older who's immune compromised, or anyone age 18 or older who received Johnson & Johnson as their primary dose and Johnson & Johnson as your booster dose. If you are eligible, you can get your second booster dose after your 4 months after your first booster dose. So you got to remember, if you've completed the series, got your first booster dose, 4 months later, you can get a second booster, assuming you're 50 or older, or 12 older with immunocompromised, or again, 18 or older, and you've only gotten Johnson & Johnson.
Ko ia hange ko nene tu ka para ngawe ke pe Johnson and Johnson ta havalu fai ki olunga te ke lava pe o ngawe a ke booster dose ko ni. Okay, thank you, Silly. There's something that people were asking, for removing the mask mandate, and also the restriction right now. A lot of them are lifted, and also the vaccine verification. Is it going to be all back to normal, or just for now?
Well, I mean, everything has been lifted, but you got to remember that businesses can make their own decisions about things. So, for example, I went to a concert yesterday at WAMU Theater, but you still needed a vaccine verification card, and they still required us to wear masks, even though those are lifted. So businesses
Right.
can make their own decisions. So as you enter a business space or you enter a faith space, just be aware that they might have some different policies or protocols that they want you to follow. But outside of that, yes, Washington State, most everything is lifted. Does that mean we're going back to normal? No, that just means we're making a step towards the new normal. I don't know if there's ever going to be a back to normal, but I feel like this is the new normal.
Right. Hange ko ia nei tuku atu ko ia sili kalepo. Ko neongo pe ko osito o ngai whataptapu I lahi. Kana oi ke konseti pe au ke eke pe ai ho ai kati ho ia. So ka paulewa o ko ke alu ka whainga business pe ko hawhare kai o kuna ke whamalohi pe na toke anho kati ho mo tu e mas. Ko mea pe ia anau tolu whakafo I tui pe anau tolu. Ka koe tutu ni koe me statei o ko I kai ke toi whai whakataptapui. Ka paule te ke alo te ka whetu o hange pe ko te alu ki whare mahaki. Like going to the hospital, they still require you to wear the mask, regardless, at any time, because it's like for the healthy measure. Aya ko whepe whetu te ke alu ki ai. Neo ko sto e whataptapui. pia whakangofua, hange koe ki toi eke ai hu. Ka paurewa te ke alko ka whetu nau ke eke koe mea peia ai business ko ia. Okay, thank you, Silly, for the update.
Yep. The next one, real quick, is vaccine costs. Is there going to be a cost for the vaccine or for the fourth booster? Folks have been asking. No, COVID vaccine and boosters are free, regardless of insurance, income, citizenship, or immigration status. So drop-ins are welcome at King County operated vaccination sites and many of the partner sites. Just go on to kingcounty.gov/vaccines. But there are a few updates on some changes to some of the sites. So starting April 15th, the Kent Public Health Center vaccine site will be closed. The last day it will be open is Friday, April 15th. And then Auburn Outlet Collection Mall vaccine site will remain open with the same hours for the month of April as they reassess and look at different things. And some other things is while public health provides sites and are adjusting, we continue to work with partners to prepare for expanded services for future COVID surges or vaccines as need arises. But CMAR Kent remains open for drop-in same-day vaccination appointments, and Health Point locations in Kent and Renton open for vaccine appointments. So a lot of that to say is, if you're looking for that fourth booster for a parent, a grandparent, or an older adult, it's there, it's available. Again, as we mentioned, some of the Kent sites will start closing in April, but Auburn Outlet Mall will be open for the community. And then our partnership with CMAR and Health Point at different locations in Kent and Renton are going to be available for community. And that is the end of my updates. And again, very booster heavy, but a lot of the information I feel like we've been pushing it out. And again, that's why in my segments, when I come back on Thursday, I really want to talk about community conversation and community things as we, slowly dissipate from COVID. It's just, I want to try to change the topics and talk about something different.
Thank you so much, Silly. Those are wonderful information. And like I said, I mentioned about the second booster dose. This is the first time I heard about it. And I'm glad you shared the update from the King County Public Health. Ko iai o ku whamanata tuheni. Ka pau mo te whengau ake huhu kone o te ataia ko e booster dose hono waia. Aia tak ni manoa whai ki o lunga. Tu ke ka pana ke ngawe ake Johnson and Johnson ta wal whai ki o lunga. Pea ka pau o ku ke whengawe aki ai ngahi whahinahina koe ni. O kai pe ngai whetu uia nengo ko os whaatahe State of Washington. Kau ke ia o te peke ngai whetu e ni nau ke whe mana toke tui ho mass. Pea mo ange o ho kāti nai pe koe Silly. They went to a concert and it was asking for a vaccine verification. So regardless that the restriction has been lifted and mask mandate has been removed, ka e mei whakate whito. Hange pe ko tawo ki wharimaki ka pau te al wharimaki. Ko e harewa mea koko. Nengo ko sto'o ai ngai whataptapui. Ka kei whi mak pe wharimaki. Ko ngai ko ngai tūtu ni peia ke mo ilele. So ka taki neta o te tuku e te pe mo i he ata. Second booster dose is available right now for 50 years and older. So, okay, lava le hange fo I huhu takai hono whae. Ta koe tau huhu tai motu pe. Koe huhu takai hono whae nia. Okay, Silly, I'm glad you're still there. So the booster dose, this one here that's available for 50 years and old, is it required or it's just like it's an available vaccine for the people that wanted to use it?
It's available for those folks who fall under the criteria of who's eligible for it. And on the Facebook Live Voice of South Pacific, I dropped the link in the comments about when they made it live. It was April 30th is when they March 30th is when they updated the website. But it talks a little bit more on the website link page, so feel free to link on that. And again, it's if you feel like you need more protection, if you feel like you have some of those underlying conditions, or again, you're over 18 and you for some reason got Johnson and Johnson as a booster, you probably should get a little bit more protected. Because I got Johnson and Johnson, I got COVID. It was like, ooh, Johnson not very good. But I did get boosted at one of the Voice of the South Pacific sites. So yeah, it's more aware, and then again, it's ages 12 years old and folks who are immunocompromised. So within that link that I dropped in the chat on the Facebook Live, really explains and takes a little deeper dive. And yep.
Thank you so much, Silly. I'm glad you do share all this great, and this is the most updated information that you have shared because a lot of people are not even aware of this. And like Silly said, the booster dose is not required. However, it's just for protection. For those of you that need to use it, you can go ahead, and use the booster dose. It's a second booster dose, but it's available for those that are 50 years and older. And like he mentioned, he was using Johnson and Johnson, but otherwise, that was did not protect him. Ko ia ka pau mo ke whengawe ake hohu malu I, ko me amaho I ngā pe whakalau. Prevention is better than cure. Tau rea whatonga, tā lango ke mamao. Ko te teu pe a kita ki he whahauwhi kita, mo malu I kita, pea mo toka ngā I pe kita he ku lahi ngai mahak pipihi I ngai ahoni, ko tau whenga pe ke tau tokoni I ke tau tolu, ke malu I whakalufua kita, pea mo hoto family. Mako ia pe, thank you so much, Silly. And I already announced it, booster dose, the second booster dose is not required. O ki kai ke tuunia ke ngawe ake takotape, but otherwise it is available. For those of you that need it, prevention is better than cure. Ta'u ni manoa vai ki olonga. Thank you again for updates and also the great new information that makes everybody being aware of today. Thank you, Silly, and we're looking forward for those of you that have any feedback or any input, please share it, Ko ha ngai topic, ko ha ngai ka veinga ke tala ngai, me kau matike tika ko ia, me kau matao ko ia tau ngai matakari, tonga, ha moa, fisi, ke nau kau mai, ke tau vahe ko e langa hake ai, whelanga ake ai toko tako tape. Ko e tau vahe, mo e tau whelanga aki, mo e tau whetokoni aki, ko e mea ia maho inga. Whamalot kalolai ne helu pe au hopoi, o whātu ki ho o mam. Yeah, I know that one of our legendary musicians, ko tangata hiva I loa ko I musika, o kuongo I e tako toa, ai ko Ulise Pole o toko maata. He just passed away on Monday, and I know his funeral is set up for next Thursday. That's the wake night, and the memorial service will be on the Good Friday morning in the burial. Aia ko e si I mea whakaike no Ulise, ko amana ke tau hangat ki ai, but otherwise on Monday, we'd like to invite everybody, please join us. If you have anything to share, sweet memory, or have any little contribution, to the widow, Lisa, everybody are welcome to share and show love, to this great person with the talent that God has blessed him and he blessed others. And that's our family, the Aho family, my in-laws are the top fan of him. They always, all the events and all of the family events, they always invite Ulisse. And that's a big missed out, from them too. But he's well known all over the world, in Tonga, New Zealand, Australia, United States of America, and Hawaii. Everybody will miss him. And we look forward to have the great program on Monday at 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. Pacific time. 7 p.m. that is the 3 o'clock on Tonga time, same as Fiji. And then also that would be the same as New Zealand. And Hawaii, that would be 5 o'clock on your time. Salt Lake City, that would be 8 o'clock. Texas, that will be 9 o'clock. And the East Coast, like New York and Washington, D.C., that would be 10 o'clock on your time. So please join us, on our special program next week, in tribute for the life of these legendary singers and the musician, Ulisse Poleo Tokomaata. We all missed your voice. And then this is the last song that we're closing with Ulisse Poleo. Thank you again, Silly.
Thank you.
Mamata mai be ki hangi ko ngai kato manyo ke koi ase tu kone ngai tawa nga koi halaya koi ai tamatu I ai koi halaya koi tawa aho tu ko fa ya koi le hanga pe ka asia te ngai ata koi ni ngai ko mo le amai ki ni ngai ata ka to an pe mi tonga ani tata na ke tu kwatu ya mahatau kai nga tonga te kataha ya mani fa ko I want to go back to the islands. I'm gonna